us. It's great to be here after about, I think, probably 18 or 19 years. That was too long of a time, but God did bring us back to New England for a time, and thank you, Peter and Jeanette, for your amazing hospitality. We had a great time. We drove up on Friday and stayed with them, and yesterday went up to Canada to close our bank account, which we lost access to over moving from Canada to. Anyways, so they were troopers and helped us out, and got to have our first sugar on snow ever with the pickle. You know, it's the real deal. I loved it. We both loved it, actually. So.
I didn't like it.
She didn't like the pickle. I ate her pickle. So that worked out good for me.
She did like maple ice cream though. So
she did like the maple ice cream. And it's great to be with you guys. And I'm just so encouraged to see people that have stayed faithful for a long time. You know, Pat and Carolyn, we've met a long time ago, and you know, Larry, you know, we never get to spend a lot of time, but we've been around, and Steve and Brenda, and from we met in New Hampshire, and it's, you know, that's encouraging, but it's also great to see some people that I've never met before. So let me introduce myself. My name is Peti, Szabad, and my wife and I have been disciples for 31 years. And this is our family, our growing family actually. We have a son, Robbie, on the right. He's 24. He just moved to Boston to do his PhD at Boston College in microbiology. He's been a disciple for almost 11 years now. And our daughter, Annie, got engaged in this photo in October last year. She and her fiance Jordan are studying down in Virginia at Redford University. They're graduating on May 10th.
Nice.
And they're getting married on May 18th. Oh, wow. Go on a honeymoon, come back, pack up a U-Haul truck and drive up to New England. Because our daughter got into UMass Amherst for her PhD in theoretical physics. So I don't ask where the genes come from. And don't expect any of that from me. We're just proud of our kids. They love God. That's what matters most to me. And but God is working in their lives, and they're going to be closer to us, which they were away for a few years, and that was rough, especially with us being in Canada and our son being in the U.S. during COVID. We had a 17-month stretch where we didn't get to see each other face to face. That was rough. I probably cried for about 2 days after I finally got to hug my son. So, but we moved to New England, to the town of Fitchburg, Massachusetts, a year and a half ago, to help plant the North Point Church, which is the newest church planting in New England. It's the Leominster-Fitchburg area of small town Massachusetts. This is downtown Leominster. We actually meet in that church building in the afternoons because another congregation uses it in the mornings. And it's one of these mill towns, that have gone through lots of ups and downs. Very, very awesome. Our mission team was very different than most mission teams because these about 30 disciples were living in the area for years. Many of them have been faithful disciples for decades. Most of them are in their 50s and 60s. That's our mission team, but it's a great group of young people. It's about this size. That's the church we have, and I brought some short videos that my wife made. We eat together a lot. I hope you guys do that. There's something magical that happens when you have food around. Jesus did that a lot. While those videos play, please, this is a plea. Please pray for us, and we'll pray for you. Okay. Being here, I love visiting churches because I put faces and experiences to. I know we have a church in Burlington, Vermont, but now I know who you are, and what a blessing it is to have a relationship. That was our Women's Day last year. We're going to have one next Saturday, actually. So we love eating together, and we're trying to create a community, our theme for our congregation is a guide on your journey. And that's one of the Psalms when God says He will be our guide. And we're not going to be the guides for people in Fitchburg and Leominster. We just want to introduce them to God who can actually guide us. So we're very grateful. And can't wait for summer to do some more outdoor services. Love the nature. That's a traditional Hungarian cauldron that I cooked for the whole church for people. That was awesome. But anyway, so if you want to follow our church, there's a QR code you can scan. We're on Facebook, Instagram, webpage, all of these things. But so that's a little bit about us. We'll share more, and my wife gets to speak. She is the better speaker out of the two of us. We're going to share a little bit about our conversion story later during the sermon. But I wanted us to continue our Bible study of the Gospel of John. I know that's what you guys have been working on over the last few weeks. So the title of my sermon is How Close Can You Go? And if you're my age, you probably know the song from Greece, How Low Can You Go? From John Travolta and all that. So that's what the title resonates with. If you're younger, you're like, what are you talking about? So we're studying John chapter 16, 17, and 18 today, but we're not going to read 3 chapters, and I'm not going to preach on 3 chapters. I picked 6 verses out of chapter 17 that I want to focus on today, and then have a little bit of context. So here's the part that we're going to study, John 17, verse 20 to 25. And this is a prayer by Jesus. We don't have a lot of prayers from Jesus recorded in the Bible, but for some reason John felt like that he wants to record this one. And it's a longer prayer, and this is just the last part of this prayer, because this is a prayer where Jesus is praying for you and me. And so there's a connection with this. He's not only praying for the apostles that he's spending this last time before his crucifixion with. He already was thinking about you and me. Isn't that special? So what's he praying? Let's read. My prayer is not for them alone, meaning the apostles. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me. May they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you gave me to be with me where I am, and to see my glory, the glory you have given me because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them, and will continue to make you known, in order that the love you have for me may be in them, and that I myself may be in them. One of the first things I conclude from this passage, I don't pray like Jesus prays. This is deep stuff. I pray, I pray the appointments I have throughout the day, the situations, finances, problems, health, read the prayer requests that people ask me to pray. This is deep stuff. Jesus prayed for very spiritual things. But I want to, before I spend more time with this prayer, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a context. This is the conclusion of something that John, or the scholars call the farewell discourse of Jesus. So that starts with Jesus having the Lord's Supper, the Last Supper, with his disciples, and it continues throughout them going to the Garden of the Olives, and then he's ending with him praying through that whole night. And John gives us this amazing window in a lot of the things that it's being discussed in this. This is Jesus' last conversation before his followers, with his followers before his crucifixion, before they would experience losing him. And some of them thought for good. But we don't get to see a lot of what they talked about after he was risen. But this is just a few pickings from the previous few chapters of the Gospel of John. And I want you to kind of think about what's resonating from some of these messages. And having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. Chapter 13, verse 1. My children, I will be with you only a little longer. A new command I give you, love one another. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. Chapter 14. If you love me, you will obey what I command. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. Chapter 15. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. All this I have told you, that you will not go astray. Chapter 16. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. So question, what do you hear Jesus communicating through these words? What's coming to you? Anybody?
Be close to Jesus.
Be close to Jesus.
Remain close to Jesus.
Remain close to Jesus. Anything else?
It's the unity that we desire to have with us.
Yeah, the unity he desires with us. Anything else?
I think his love stands out when he keeps talking about that over and over.
Keeps bringing up this idea of love. Come on, Jesus. Maybe we need to get this, huh? Yeah.
And I think his idea of love is so much greater than, like, we're willing to love our families and the people who are close to us on our own. But he's like, no, love each other, like in this group of fishermen and tax collectors and people who you wouldn't necessarily love otherwise. Like, he elevates what love is. Like, it's not just your family, it's people you don't necessarily like. Yeah,
love one another as I have loved you. And they're just going to experience how much he loves them by dying for them in a minute. It's weird for them to say, he says, remain in me, and then I'm going to die in about 12 hours, right? What do you mean, right? So we're going to come back to this because I think some of these thoughts that you guys shared that are really the focus of this last conversation he has with his apostles are kind of also included in his prayer at the end for all of us. But I want to talk about something first that is the loneliness epidemic. And I want to bring this to our time and age today, not just to Jesus' time, and then kind of go back and forth a little bit with this time in this setting with his apostles and his prayer. You know, there is a loneliness epidemic in our world today, especially in North America. And it's explained by, one way to explain this is by this concept of personal space. You guys familiar with the idea of personal space?
Yeah.
Right? There's a level of distance that I feel comfortable with different people. Here's an explanation. There's personal space have different ranges. The one, and this is in the metric, the one to about 1.5 feet. That's the intimate zone. The only people allowed in that zone are people that you consider family, pretty much, right? Those people will touch you because being that close, it's hard not to touch. And then the next one is the friend zone. When you high five, when you're kind of having this close conversation with friends, but they're not. You know, there's a limit of how close you feel okay with that friend to come. And then there's social zone, and once we meet in a meeting room like this, there's we're hanging around, we get the muffins, we socialize, and then there's a few feet of distance that zone is kind of you feel comfortable even talking to people that are almost strangers in a social setting. And there's the audience zone. The speaker's got to be a little ways away, not just because of his range, but other things. So that's personal space. And a best observation of personal space is when you get into an elevator. What happens in an elevator? 2, 3 people get in.
Pushed into that
Everyone just sort of looks straight ahead and.
Look straight ahead if it's too crowded, or move to a corner.
Yeah.
Because we want to respect that, we understand personal space. We don't go into the elevator and, just grab the other person. But it's also cultural. In Japan, for example, they hire pushers to get more people into the trains. And the people that take the train, they give up, knowingly they give up the right to personal space in order to get home to their families after work. You can wait for the next train, but that will be just as crowded. So what do you do? Right? So there's different ways. One interesting thing I want to share with you guys is how there was this pandemic a few years ago. How it affected people's perception of personal space. There's a study done by Daphne Holt, a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School, and there's a whole article. I only read this one paragraph relating to personal space. She says, for those who were assessed both times, before and after the pandemic, there was a 40 to 50% increase or more in the size of personal space compared with before the pandemic, when it was 80 to 90 centimeters. That's the average personal space. They've done some kind of measurement, which is 2.6 to 3 feet. For one of the measurements we took, it's now about 125 centimeters, which is 4.1 feet on average. So one way the pandemic affected our society is we took a step back. We took a 1.5 foot step back from other humans. And you know what that produces? Loneliness. We don't feel as close. But we've gotten used to. And it's international. These are a bunch of the countries that they've done similar studies of changes of personal space. China, they don't have enough data. I'm not sure about all the, how trustworthy the data is, anyways. But all the other countries on this, including the U.S., have increased personal space since the pandemic. And the columns are general acquaintance, close relationships, different levels of changes. And I can send you the slides. But today, as a result of this, there is an epidemic of loneliness. In 2023, the U.S. Surgeon General produced this book on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And it talks about how important it is to have communities come back together after the pandemic. Now, that's not happening, I'm telling you. What's happening is people are getting lonelier. And this is another study done by Dr. Paul T. Wong on the effects of loneliness. 43% of seniors feel lonely on a regular basis, and this has increased. And the effect of loneliness, this last study is mind-blowing, is more dangerous to your health than obesity and as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow.
That's what loneliness does to our physical health. And this is a study done on seniors, but this is not just seniors, but the study was on seniors. We have a loneliness epidemic in our society today. So this whole idea that Jesus is talking about of love, remaining, abiding, being close, it goes way against all of this. So I'm going to talk about two things briefly today when it comes to our lives. First of all, and I'm going to use both points, the illustration of personal space. First, in this personal space, my first question, where does God belong in your life? Are you an audience? God is speaking over there and I'm over here. He's up in heaven. Is he, social? Like, God is, just don't come too close. You're over there, you're fine, God. Or is he, maybe he's a friend. Or is he in your intimate zone? And I want to talk about this because I think this is important, because God is the solution to our loneliness epidemic. He is the glue that brings people together. He is love, right? And love makes all this change. There was this book back in the day by Max Lucado called God Came Near. You know, where does God want to be in our personal space? Well, he came as, you know, he was born as a little baby about 2,000 years ago. That's the story of Christmas. Because he wanted to be close to the other humans. That's how God came near. And I love the series The Chosen. I'm not sure if you guys watch that. I love the person that depicts Jesus is a very friendly, close, personable, even funny at times, portrayal of Jesus. But it is not the distant Jesus. And maybe I've seen other depictions of Jesus. Zeffirelli's movies, for example, and Jesus is always looking a little up over everybody's head, and he's always there's always that 3-4 feet distance from anybody, and the Chosen is not that, which I love. But in this farewell discourse, Jesus says the following: I will ask the Father, and he will give you another counselor to be with you forever. Because he's not going to be with them forever. The Spirit of truth. The world cannot accept him because it neither sees him nor knows him, but you know him, for he lives with you and will be in you. How close does God want to be? Where does he want to be on that personal space spectrum? He doesn't just want us to be his audience. At least we're listening to him. He doesn't just want to be socially connected to us. He doesn't even want to just be friends. He doesn't even want to be family. He actually wants to be even closer than that. He wants to be in you. In you. He wants to be as close as it can happen. So with that in mind, when we read John chapter 17, the same prayer that I read at the beginning of the service, I highlighted a few things in it. My prayer is not for them alone. I also pray for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. Jesus experienced that unique one. For him, God wasn't up in heaven. He was in him. May they also be in us. May they experience this intimacy, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I've given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me. May they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am. Where you go, I go. Where you stay, I stay. And to see my glory, the glory you have given me, because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them, and will continue to make you known, in order that the love you have for me may be in them, and that I myself may be in them. And I believe he means through the Spirit. God in me. That's what God wants. And when we have God not at a distance, but in us, that changes everything. I'm going to do the PG-13 version of this. But in 1 Corinthians 6, Paul is actually talking about sexual relationships with a prostitute. And using an illustration to explain, when we become Christians, something special happens. He says, do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ himself? Shall I then take the members of Christ and unite them with a prostitute? Never. Do you not know that he who unites himself with a prostitute is one with her in body? For it is said, the two will become one flesh. But he who unites himself with the Lord is one with him in spirit. Marriage, and even the physical relationship part of marriage is an illustration for what God actually wants to be in our lives. He wants to be as intimate as a husband and a wife gets when they make love. That's how, and I know that's not necessarily the traditional explanation of who God is. But when I read the Bible, that's what I read. He wants to be in us. He wants to have that level of intimacy. So where does God belong on this scale? You know, He wants to be as intimate as it is possible. So that's my question is, where is your intimacy with God? I hope, you know, this is something that doesn't happen automatically. I've got to work on this. Automatically, I actually more comfortable with God being a little bit more away. Because then I'm not as conscious of Him being around. I don't, you know, some of the, you know, I don't feel the pressure necessarily to align my life with Him as much. That's more comfortable. When God is near, that makes me behave differently, think differently, feel differently. But such a better version of myself, actually, even if it's uncomfortable. Right. The more, you know, our daughter's about to get married, and she shared with me some of her fears of marriage. I mean, this is what everybody, you know, all the single people want to get married. This is, you know, you want this and all that. But yes, there is a fear of what it will be like to experience that kind of an intimacy and to be so exposed and vulnerable and trusted to another being. And that same thing goes with God. If you know, you have fears of getting really intimate with God, I get that. It's normal because it isn't comfortable. But what a blessing it is. My wife and I celebrated about a little over 27 years of marriage. Nice. But for us to really still stay connected, we need to work on it. One thing that we started doing this past year is we give hugs to each other. Just randomly, any point in the day, one of us will stop the other and give a 6 to 8 second long hug.
Medicinal.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get there in a minute. Because my next point is when we connect with people, we need to ask the questions, where do people belong in this? Because it's one thing to get intimate with God, who is perfect, who loves you and accepts you as you are, and wants to forgive you. He will never hurt you. He will never sin against you. How about people? That is so much harder. So let's read this prayer again. I know we're reading this the third time, but I highlight some things about people in this because it isn't just. We are not called to go and be monks and go and really spend this quality time with God 24/7, week in, week out. We're actually called to also do that with people. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one. Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they be also in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. I have given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are. I in them and you in me. May they be brought to complete unity to let the world know that you sent me and have loved them as you have loved me. You know, earlier Jesus says, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples. When we actually take that love and bring it to a community of people, something amazing happens. God is shown. And Paul actually tells all the churches he writes letters to, greet one another with a holy kiss. You know, a kiss was reserved for a greeting of a family member in those days. It still is in Hungary. It would be rude for me to go home to see my parents and not give a kiss on the cheek to both my mom and my dad. That's how we greet each other. And I know that's not necessarily the culture here in North America. We do hugs. And yes, it is. There's a power in hugs. And I love that our church at least does hugs. Right? We need more, we need that closeness, that connection, and that family feel, because something amazing happens when we give hugs. And one of the questions that I ask from our small church at North Point is, how can we become a community that when people come in, they say, you guys are not a church, you guys are you related to each other? You guys behave like it. That's because I see that's what Jesus is praying for here. So we come so close to one another that it is uncomfortable. that it pushes some of our personal, personal, what is it called? Our boundaries, our limits of personal space. But hugs are awesome. We need hugs when we're happy. Our kids need hugs. They automatically drawn. We need hugs when we're old. We just need that closeness with other human beings. We're designed that way. We thrive when we have that close connection. And you know what the world needs? It's not necessary for us to tell them about Jesus. Yes, they need that too. But what they need is a group of people that actually experiences this kind of closeness and love.
Right.
Because it isn't, that's the antidote of the loneliness epidemic. I love this quote by Charles Spurgeon. He says, "The Bible is not the light of the world, it is the light of the church. But the world does not read the Bible. The world reads Christians. You are the light of the world." In the United States, over the last 70, 80 years, church membership is on the decline. And over the last couple of years, it has gone under 50%. Less than half of the U.S. adult population is a member of a congregation. Another stat recently shows that evangelism is on life support in most churches. 99% of pastors say the church isn't effective at outreach to non-church goers. All right, these are the loneliness epidemic, where God actually has the church as the hospital for this. The church is shrinking and is getting worse in outreach. We're not helping heal the world overall. We're just suffering from the same epidemic, but we have the antidote. We have God. Another quote from Mark Matlock. It says, well, I think what we have to realize is that a lot of our evangelism methods were built at a time when there was a different plausibility in our culture. And so the idea of evangelism was how do we efficiently communicate the message as quickly as possible, with as many as possible, and make sure we do it accurately. Cold contact evangelism. You guys familiar with that? I love this cartoon. Would you throw this away for me, please? Yeah. Doesn't it feel that way at times? Yeah. You give out about 100 invitation cards, and maybe one person at best shows up at church. And 40 years ago, people needed information. And giving them a place where they could get it. They sought it. They were seeking after truth. Now they just say, hey Siri, tell me, what does John 17 teaches? Can you make it in 3 points and practical to my life? You know my life anyways, right? You follow, you work closer to our phones than to God. One of the things that we've done with our church is gone through an emotionally healthy spirituality course that's done by Peti. And one of the things is love and not ministry activities or spiritual practices is the measure of spiritual maturity. So my question today, that as I read this prayer of Jesus, is one, how can I experience Him living in me through His Holy Spirit? And that's a whole sermon series probably on the Holy Spirit. But then number two, how can I be part of a community where we actually love each other so deeply that we can spill this love over to our communities and they get to see it, experience it? What is a good way of evangelism? There's a book came out a couple of years ago called Blessed that I really liked. And part of the book is actually, it's an acronym. Begin with prayer, listen, eat, serve, and then share your story. It also has an app, but the idea is people, they don't just need an invitation to church today. They need a little more than that. First of all, nothing changes more than praying for somebody, because God is at work. This is not a technique. We're not trying to convert people for the sake of, producing products of a factory. And, our profit margin is not greater. No, that's not what we're doing. We're representing God in this world.
Amen.
How do we do that? Well, we need God to work in these people's lives. So we pray for them.
Amen.
Prayer has greater effectiveness in a church's outreach than actual evangelism. Think about it.
Amen.
Listen. People are lonely. They don't have anybody that they can share what's going on in their lives. Us listening to them without ever having to invite them to church.
Mm-hmm.
Just listening to them will communicate something amazing about God to them. And then eat, as I said. Eating together is become a staple of our church. Whether it's in homes, whether it's we have potluck services once a month, where we actually sit around tables during the service and eat while we have the service. Not after, as an afterthought, but during service. We have 2 songs, a prayer for a meal, and we go get the food, sit down, fellowship for 30 minutes as we eat, and I start preaching for 20 minutes while people are still eating their food, going for seconds. No worries, just go get some more food. And then we'll celebrate all the birthdays with a birthday cake and have some dessert, and then have table discussions while we have dessert. That's what we do. So anyways, then serve people. That's a very practical way of doing love. And then share your story. So you can download the app if you want to and try this out. It actually gives you the names of all the neighbors in your location, and you can start praying for them. And it's kind of, everything is gamified today. You can check out, pray for this neighbor today, and it gives you 5 names to pray for in your neighborhood. And then I did listen to this neighbor at the mailbox we met, or I helped. I saw that they were struggling with shoveling their snow. I went over and helped. I served. There's lots of different ways to do this. But the idea is that Jesus prayed for you and me to be close to Him. And then for you and me to experience and give this love to other people, starting in the church, and then letting the love spill over to other people around us. It isn't just an invitation card to church, and some people will still pick that up and do that. I had somebody that became a Christian who picked it up in a bus stop from the ground, came to church, and became a disciple. So God can use anything.
Amen.
But I think we got to grow in really meeting the needs of the communities, and that is loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
People are lonely, and they need the love. They need a community that they go, wow, I want what you guys have, because I see God through this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very grateful that God, that there were people in New England, even 30-some years ago, that decided that people in Hungary need this.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1993, they sent a bunch of people over many people over for 2 weeks to start as a church planting to Budapest, Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife and I are forever grateful for the Boston church and the New England churches and for the faith that made this happen. Now, a lot of those people moved back 2 weeks later after the first service, and these guys stayed. That was the smallest mission team sent out until that point, 6 people. And many of them were young Christians. The oldest was like 3 years old of a disciple. They all had some connection to Hungary. They spoke broken Hungarian. If you told me that these people will come and change your whole country, I would have said, are you kidding me? Because they weren't so impressive. But you know what was impressive? They had God. And I wanted my wife to also share how we connect with this story.
So, actually, right here in this picture, they are standing in front of one of the dorm in a university where both of us studied. I studied civil engineering, and he was electrical engineer. So I think that's maybe our kids get that, desire for. But I want to start my story earlier. So I grew up in a countryside. My father came from a Jewish background, and he has several family members who died in Auschwitz. So he said, I don't believe in a God who let these horrible things happen. And my mom just grew up an atheist. She has really rough time. So in my family, we didn't talk about God. And actually, it was kind of a socialism in Hungary. So the old ladies has Christianity, rest of the other country believe in socialism or whatever.
Materialism.
Yeah, materialism. So I grew up without that. I was a tomboy. I played with the boys, and I always had a hard time to connect the girls. And I remember that when my fellow friends, who were boys, started to look at me as a woman, I was really like, guys, step back, because that's not how we started here. I just want to be a friend with you. So I was really looking forward to go to the high school, and I chose a high school where I can be far from my family, having freedom. So I already live in a dorm. And it's in a high school, I don't know is there exists here, like high school, have a dorm?
Well, boarding schools.
Or boarding.
Yeah.
Well, you could call it boarding. It wasn't really boarding school. Whatever. It was strict, but we always had a way to sneak out. And then our group was one of the big troublemaker group. But I really loved. We were like a black sheep. If there was a problem, okay, that's your group, isn't it? So I was almost kicked out from the dorm because I didn't follow really the rules. But I always thought that rules is just that because you want to break that. So you just like had to deviate from the rules. But as I just shared, I did not grow up with the faith. The only way I heard about Jesus was the Jesus Christ Superstar and the Gospels. And I really loved the music. I said, okay, it's an interesting guy. I didn't really believe it's a true story or not, but then someone gave me the very thick Bible, and I started to read from the beginning. And then after several relatives, that this son was this son, and son, and leave this there, and said, oh gosh, like the whole Bible is full of that. So, okay, thank you so much. It's not for me. But even I had some friends who had faith in the dorm, but their life wasn't different from mine. So I said, like, wait, okay, I don't need God to have the same life, but you have. And their example wasn't really helping me to find faith. But the custom or the culture in Hungary, that's when you finish high school, you need to have a huge exam. The end of your, like, you have to have 5 different subjects and an exam, and that's really matter that they are accepted you in a university or not. So I asked my friends, I said, okay, I don't believe really God, but don't you teach me how to pray? Because who knows, I need every support. Maybe there is a God, like I need to pray. So she taught me how to pray. I went to the temple. I wanted to light up the candle, and the priest said, you cannot. I said, there are already several candles. What's the problem with my candle? So let's just say this interaction didn't help me to love Christianity either, but I was accepted. And then one thing, like as I just shared with you, that I had a problem, or I have a hard time to connect to girls. When I went to the high school and lived in a dorm, 17 girls were in one room.
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah. The first week I was just crying.
I bet.
And I thought, okay, I did not believe heaven and hell, okay? But if I believe, this is how hell would be.
Right? One bathroom.
And yeah. Well, yeah, several, and then we were showering together. And I get used to it, but one thing I really learned that I have to close my heart. I have to protect. Because with the boys, we were fighting, we were wrestling, and we were friends again. With the girls, it's a cold war.
Yeah.
You have no idea what's happening behind you. You have no idea you are okay or not. They are smiling, and then who knows what's happening. And so that's what I learned too. So it's little by little, my heart started hardening. And I said, okay, I cannot show my emotions. I have to protect myself because it is dangerous. So that's how I started and then to the university.
Yeah. I also grew up as an atheist. We only went to church when we visited grandparents, and it was cold, and I couldn't wait for lunch, which grandma would make. That was so much better than being at church. I didn't get it. I never understood the message. But as a young person, I read a lot. I would read 80 to 100 pages a day. I was an avid reader, and I enjoyed reading books, and I read everything that we had in our home, and we did have a Bible, apparently. So I read through the Bible probably a couple of times before, but I never really looked for God. I read it like the Greek myths, or the Roman stories, or Kalevala, or the Bhagavad Gita. People just come up with this idea of what could be there. People invent God to themselves. And growing up in a materialistic socialist country, that was even the culture. So, and I played volleyball. That was my sport. I played it in high school, played it in college, and even semi-professionally. I was on the junior national team for one summer before getting injured, and but that was my passion about life and girls. I dated, I flirted, and that was life. So going to university, I was full of myself. I was living life, playing volleyball, very popular. I always had a girlfriend. But life wasn't satisfying still. Even though I was very successful, I had the life of the party. So I started to drink more and more. Even to the point I started smoking, I tried some drugs, that I was kicked off of the volleyball team. And that was, but that still didn't really do anything for me. I almost flunked out of university. But before I get to that's so because of this behavior. But I mean, people were putting bets on me not making it.
Wow.
And I did. So I won a lot of money. And what happens? First day of the next semester, I go down and get drunk. I don't even know how I made it back to my room. Even though I was telling myself, how could you be so stupid? You almost flunked out. Come on, change your lifestyle. So I started to get to that point where I was feeling somewhat lost and losing control of my life, even though I was a control freak in many other ways. And then we met.
Yeah. But for me, the university was the next step of freedom. And then there were some dorms, of course. And then when they told me that I don't need a permission to leave, first I didn't believe, can I come back midnight? I said, yes, who cares? Really? Okay. So I was really enjoying my life with that. And then even I kind of accepted, yeah, I am a girl, not a boy. Hey, come on, let's dating. And I had my first boyfriend, and we break up. I always had a dream that maybe, the first one would be the last one and getting married, but when it did not happen, okay, let's try with the second one. That did not happen. Let's try with the third one. That did not happen. And after a while, I said, you know what? It just doesn't work. And I started to feel like the boys or the men, they are using me. And just for them, who am I is not really interesting. They're interested more in my body and what we can give to each other. And I thought, who said the boy could do that? I could do the same thing. So why I am the one who is flirting with them and going and then doing whatever I want until I am satisfied and then leaving them. So actually that became my life, and even going to every Thursday we had parties, and even Fridays too. Every week different dorms hosted the parties, so we went around, and even I was realizing that, okay, if you wanna, I really love dancing, but it was so crowded, so I need to drink a little more to enjoy it, loosen up, and have fun together. But deep inside, I wasn't satisfied. Deep inside, I felt something is wrong. this is not the life that I want to live. But he didn't know how to do differently. And there was one time when, with my roommates, we counted, there were, okay, I studied civil engineering. I don't know what is the culture here, but back then, civil engineering was mainly men, very few women. So we were very well taken care of by the men, and we had a lot of choices. I had a lot of choices too. And with my roommate, we counted, there were 10 boys who wanted to date with me. And just because freaking out everyone, I choose 11. No one thinking about that. So I'm always like, I have to do something, but people doesn't accept me to do.
Yeah.
I just do the opposite. And one of my boyfriend, roommate, was a disciple. And he invited me for a Bible talk. And we had a lot of great conversation. And as I told you, this big Bible wasn't really inviting me. But this is a basic knowledge, but everybody should know what is inside the Bible, what the Bible says. So I promise I will go to the Bible talk because they will explain to me, and I don't have to read it. But the whole the Bible talk was always on the same day when we had a party. So don't do that if you do a Bible talk. Okay, check where in the universe there's a party. Having the same time, it doesn't help. But he kept inviting me, so I felt guilty because I promised. I said, oh guys, I had to go. Because I promised, let's just go once. And I went, and I was so surprised that young people having faith and even enjoying life and believing God, how on earth they could put this together. Because for me, Christianity, black clothes, black room, black Bible, that's it, don't smile, don't enjoy your life, don't be serious. But they were opposite. So as soon as they said, like, okay, would you like to know about the Bible? Would you like to study? I said, well, why not? Of course. So we started studying the Bible. And there was one thing what it really showed me that in John 7:17, it says, like, if you put in practice my teaching, you will really know this is coming from me or someone who sent me. So they said, Peter, put in practice. I said, oh gosh, that's the next level. It's not enough just reading, but put in practice. And I realized I really had to change my relationship with men's and trusting that God's plan is better than mine. And honestly, it took a while. I wasn't sure I want to do that. So, but I thought it through and I said, okay, let's say that I live 80, 90 years. I give 3 months to the Bible. I really live according to the Bible for 3 months, and let's see if it's working or not. If it doesn't work, 3 months according to 80 years is not that big deal. I can go back to my life and continue what I did. But what if I find something? So that's what I did. And after 3 months, I realized that no one loved me as much as God loved me. And His love is much better. And all the dream I had as a younger age, what I really wanted to do, that's God's dream too. And His way, I can get that. So, and I got baptized, but I forget to share that as I flirted with a lot of guys, he was one of my
So we met about 7 months before her baptism on a trip to Istanbul, Turkey. She was on the basketball team. It was a sports festival. I was on the beach volleyball team. Was a friend and myself, 2 people. And on the bus, it's a 27-hour bus ride from Budapest to Turkey. Yes. And we're going to play a card game, this traditional Hungarian card game, mainly played by males. I know this is not politically correct, but that's our history in Hungary. And there were only 3 guys who know how to play this game, and you need 4. And then she said that she knows how to play the game. I was very skeptical. A girl, sure. But, what were our choices? We don't play, it's a long ride, or we play with her. So we ended up playing with her. And let me tell you, she knew how to play the game. She really was a tomboy. We had 3 hours of amazing card play, and I was into it, and I'm like, whoa. She was passionate, she played smart. I was impressed. So when we were done playing, she went back, sat down at her seat. I go up to her and say, hey, can I sit next to you? And then she answered, I have a boyfriend.
I really have.
You did.
But I always use that. Even if I did not have a boyfriend and I found something, I have a boyfriend.
Yeah. So I asked her, so I told her, I don't want to sit next to your boyfriend, I want to sit next to you. And that worked. So we sit next to each other, but we still, we didn't date because she didn't have a boyfriend, but we spent some time in Istanbul, Turkey, and hung out and partied, but really became good friends and spent a lot of time over the next 6 months together, mainly at parties, but not only, but talking. Yes, you can share.
Yeah, so we became really good friends. But one of the things what I knew that every time when I dated someone, we break up. So I didn't want to lose my best friend. So that was one reason why I didn't want to date with him. The other thing, I know it's bad to say that, but I love to hunt down my victims. And he offered himself by, just, I'm here for you. And I said, I don't have to hunt you down. You are always here. Where is my? So it was, but I was really mean because that was one of the times we were in a party. I sat on his knees, I kissed him, and I stood up and said, "You would never be my boyfriend," and left him.
Yeah, some of this was painful.
It was painful, but he still was my friend.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you remember this?
I do.
Maybe you were, because he tried to forget it. But
some things it's blurry.
But when I studied the Bible, I realized that what is really matter, and I started to look at him very differently. I really started to appreciate all that quality what he has, and especially the loyal friendship. So before my baptism, I went down to the party. He was there, of course, and I told him that, you know what? I can imagine you as a boyfriend now. It wasn't too wise, but I said that. But I want someone who really loves God like me. So why don't you come and check what I studied? Because I think you need Jesus in your life too.
Yeah. So
I invited him.
I was drunk. I don't remember this telling me that I can imagine you as a boyfriend part. I just remember her inviting me to the next day to her baptism. That kind of stuck.
Oh wow.
So I went. And I was really impressed by this group of people that really loved her. There was some sharing. Sometimes we don't realize that some of our really very vulnerable, close, and expressive sharing, how impactful that is. I thought that, I think these people that knew her for just a couple months loved her a lot more than I did, even though I was in love with her for about 8 months at this point. So I actually left there was a Bible talk before that, and that helped because the first question was, what do you need to throw a great party? And I felt right at home. And it was the great banquet parable of Jesus, so it was also useful to teach me that the Bible is actually practical. I made tons of excuses all my life, and some of them were just as ridiculous as in that story. But I was really discouraged walking home because I felt like she really found these loving people. She's not going to want to have anything to do with me. And one of the brothers from the church walked along with me, and bless his heart, he asked me to, I lit a cigarette. He asked me if I could stop smoking. It really bothers him, and I said, "Who are you? I don't care." That's how arrogant I was. I had ripped jeans, studded boots, a leather jacket, bandana, sunglasses day and night. I was cool. And but he still asked me if I wanted to study the Bible. And I said yes for some reason. And we got together a week later. He said he actually forgot. By the time I went to the next week's Bible talk, he forgot that we agreed to study the Bible after. So I'm standing around after Bible talk, and then he comes up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to sit down and study the Bible?" I said, "We agreed." And he goes, "We did?" But as he also gave me a newer translation of the Bible, which I went home and read about 4 hours in the next 2 days each. Right through most of the Gospels, most of the Paul's writings, the Acts. And I came back to the next Bible study and I said, I believe that this book is from God. There's just too much truth to it. No human can write this. I've read enough stuff written by humans. And now I've read this, and it also explained a lot of what I've been experiencing with life.
Mhm.
I've had girlfriends that after about 6 to 9 months, they each ended up breaking up with me. And I'm like, what's wrong with these girls? I'm a young, good-looking, smart guy. I play volleyball. You know what they figured out is that I was just a selfish person. I didn't care about these girls. I only cared about how I felt when they were with me. And the Bible has laid it out in front of me big time. And it was very convicting. So I said, hey, I want to do anything that the Bible teach me what I need to do. So we studied the Bible every day for 10 days. And then I was baptized. Just a few weeks after Rita was baptized on March 6, 1994. And then we started dating and we got back. No. I realized I messed up so many relationships. I courted so many women. I don't want to do that to her ever. So I kind of didn't talk to her for about a year, even though we were part of a small church like this.
Oh yeah, I was so angry. I thought that I got baptized, you got baptized, we were great friends, now we have to be even better friends. And then he stopped talking to me.
I just ignored her.
And I was like, what on earth?
I would say hi and give her a nice side hug. And then looking the other way, moving along. But that's because I just didn't want to mess it up. I was so fearful. I was not very mature. So it took us a few more years, but God orchestrated a bunch of things. But 3 years later, 1997, we got married and we lived happily ever after. Well, there have been some challenges along the way. I'm sure if you've been married for a long time, you know that. So you have to work through those things. And, but that didn't happen because we were so great. That happened because people believed that we needed this love that Jesus prayed for. We need this intimacy with God, and we need to experience real godly love, even in our relationship, even in the dating or our marriage relationship. And I'm so grateful for the people that prayed for that mission team, that sent that mission team, and I know, and the people that have the faith that somebody else needs this as well. Because of that, we're disciples. We have a marriage that I would not have put a lot of money on before becoming a disciple. Our kids are following Jesus, and our daughter's getting married to a disciple. Generations of lives can be changed because of little things we do and loving people. So thank you so much for listening to us. We love you guys. And I always write some questions if you want to take these home and think about it. One takeaway for me from this message: what does God want me to hear today? In what ways can I be more to an answer to Jesus' prayer in John 17? And what do I need to let God get closer to me, and how can I move closer to other people?